Section 3 will talk about the differences that the South experienced after the Civil War. Upon completion of the Civil War, two main questions were at the hearts and minds of many Southerners. First, would Cotton still be king? Second, if Cotton still would be king, who would work the plantations? Although the war destroyed some plantations, many masters managed to hang on to their land, but they had difficulty finding workers willing to work the land. Picking cotton in the blazing sun for 50 cents a day seemed too much like slavery, especially when you could work the railroad for $2. So out of this new need for workers, new patterns of farming developed in the South. The first one was called sharecropping. It was the most common new farming arrangement in the South. Sharecropping is where a family farmed part of the planter's land and in return would have to split the harvest with the owner of the land. Sharecropping, though, would trap the workers because they could not leave until all their obligations were met. The other example was tenant farming. In tenant farming, the workers did not own the land that they farmed, but instead of sharing their crops, they paid to rent the land. It gave the workers of the land more ability to decide how they would want to work the land and what they would grow and how they would sell the crops for. The tenant farmer was basically a higher class than the sharecropper. The Civil War also impacted the South in other ways. First way we have to look at is the change in labor force. Before the Civil War, 90% of the South's cotton was harvested by African American slaves. By 1875, white laborers, mostly tenant farmers, picked about 40% of the crops. In addition, the South had to import most of its food because the tenant farmer and sharecropper system focused so much on producing cash crops, cash to be sold, rather than crops used for foods. In addition, cities and industry began to emerge after the Civil War. Southerners who had visited the North after the Civil War were astounded how industrialized the North had become. Southern leaders saw a unique opportunity for the region and urged the South to build a new industrialized economy. A major focus of Reconstruction was the rebuilding and the extension of Southern railroads. Railroads turned villages into towns and towns into cities where businesses could trade and could flourish. Major cities that began to grow included Richmond, Atlanta, Nashville, Memphis, and Louisville. Despite these efforts, though, the South did not become industrialized behemoth like the North. The products focused on the early, less profitable stages of the manufacturing, and most of their focus was on cotton mills. The real money came from the North that would transform these products into goods that were highly profitable. The post-war South can be considered one giant business opportunity because the focus was on restoring the South's infrastructure, including bridges, roads, canals, railroads, telegraph lines, or creating public school systems. Some of this money came from private investors, but most of the money was raised and levied by taxes on individuals. Unfortunately, though, enormous sums of the money changed hands rapidly in the form of fraudulent loans and grants. The corruption was widespread, and all participated, North, South, Republican, and Democrat, even touching and scarring the Grant administration.